Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, good morning, good everything in between. I hope everyone is doing well. Alright. Are you joining us? I think someone is learning my live schedule because it means I sit still for a good amount of time. Only for snacks. Is that what you're saying? Is this what you want? Those are some mighty big eyes, madam. This way for the camera, baby. One more for the camera. Here. There she is. No, 2 is enough for now. How's everyone doing? My evening clearly just got better since we have tail hanging out, at least for now. Are you having a rest beginning of August and things are just... I don't know about you, but summers, at least where I hang out, tend to... Madam, hello. Tend to become pretty unhinged after a while because suddenly everything is happening all at once and there's just no trying to schedule anything. It's a struggle to keep certain things as usual because just all of a sudden everything happens. Is that what summers are like where you are as well, or is it just the season so similar that it doesn't really make a difference? I just made a pancake with cinnamon and sugar. Oh, that sounds lovely. I haven't made pancakes in a while. Perhaps I should. We're trying to clean out our pantry a bit and reduce what we have, so pancakes are a good pantry staple, aren't they? Good morning from California. Sadly, I fell and broke a finger on Monday, so no crafting for me for a bit. Oh no, that is awful. I hope you rest well and get better. That does not sound like any fun at all. I hope you have some good painkillers and that you are healing well. That is, being sick is no fun. Yes, I'm also rotating like a windmill in summer. It is the season, I suppose, and then you try to do all the stuff with canning and preserving food as well, and that turns into a whole thing, and then you're also being social with people, and that is a whole thing, and yeah, it's just madness. I am continuing today on our little crazy patchwork pouch type thingy. This has been a eternal project for a while because I'm not filming it, which means it gets terribly deprioritized. It is exactly the same shape and dimensions as the one I did film. It's just another one because I had more backing fabric. And it's just turned into something that I reach for whenever I want something nice and easy. And just finished a crochet project this morning, so I am happy. Oh, that is really nice, Sarah. It's always nice to finish stuff and not just start all of the projects, isn't it? That is very, very nice. Do you have any plans for what you're gonna tackle next? Or are you just relishing in the feeling of having finished something? Good evening, madam. Well, you can sit on my lap, but I'm kinda wanted to work on that. Oops. Good morning from the Chicago suburbs. I'm putting snaps on purses right now. That sounds like a nice. Never tried doing that. I see that little hand tool that helps you put stuff in, and I have never gotten around to use it, but it looks a bit fun. It looks like a fun thing to do. Are you just being all up in my business today, madam? If I lift you up towards the camera, I wonder, can they hear your purring? Will you accept that? It would be very rude of me now that you're just settling down. Simba? Hello? I think you stopped purring. I'm sorry, madam. Oh, my kitty handling you. I will pay off my debt with snacks. We'll do anything for snacks. Isn't that it? Very rude. It was a big purple shirt. Oh, that sounds like a really big, nice project for crocheting. That would be a very big accomplishment to finish that off. So well done. That sounds very nice indeed. Yeah, I know that's where the snacks are, but we're not having all of them at once. I know you can break into that box. You have demonstrated so before, which is why all our cat snacks are either in old washed jam jars or hiding away in drawers and cupboards and places where small kitties have a harder time accessing. Those Ziploc baggies that you get from the pet shop are no challenge for this persistent and stealthy madam who will stop at nothing to get at the thing that she wants. Yeah, we're talking about you. You are nothing if not terribly persistent. Right there. I want to continue filling seams on my pants and put pleats into the ankle seams. And I need to find my linen and measure a cuff of a piece for a wimple. And I can take on the train for that. I can take on the train for hemming. It's very nice to have some of those projects that you can just take with you that don't take up too much space or resources when traveling. I also like to have a little traveling project bag where I can just bring it and not have to think too hard about what I'm doing. Ah, there was more that I can take on the train for hemming tomorrow. I'm going on a day trip to Verningerode. Verningerode? With a friend to look at the castle/museum. If you feel like googling the town, do so. Lots of old half-timber houses. Oh, that sounds lovely. We love us some good historical houses, no matter the region. Let's see if we can. Can I just copy that? Just sneakily sneak around and not have to respell it. Oh, that is lovely. That is very pretty. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, you are gorgeous too, I know. Those are so pretty. I love local architecture because there's so much variety. And you can really see how they adapt to both their local resources and their local challenges, you know, be that snow or heat, or we have lots of stone, or like in Norway, we have lots of wood. That is very, very nice. Will you settle down, madam? It's my day off and I'm trying to finish a book. The heat is so annoying in this part of Europe. Madam is so cute, by the way. I read somewhere today is Cat's Day. Is it really? I think every day should be Cat Day, but I am so bad at keeping up with all these different days that happens all over the world, because it's always a different one, isn't it? But that would be very nice. In that case, we are celebrating Cat Day with Madam and crafts, as it should be. There you go. But yeah, I do think she's starting to learn that when I set up the computer and the everything, that I'm about to sit still for a while, because she has been quick to come to my lap. The last handful of streams, really, that I can remember, which is very nice. Have a little lap warmer, can't complain. Although sometimes she gets on my lap before I've done all the pre-stream shenanigans, which can be a little bit more challenging, but we do what we can. This is a variegated blue embroidery thread. I do think they are lovely. They add a little bit of extra fun to a project. I think I'm starting to use up the variegated thread that was in this embroidery box, but it's still a bit left. Or you're just a poor spin. I think we're just a poor spin. My heart breaks for Southern Europe. Sicily is having such a severe drought that the farmers have to start slaughtering their animals because they cannot keep them alive. Oh, that is awful. Yeah, the heat waves just keep getting worse every year, don't they? I feel like it's just every year we get all these awful news about droughts and heat waves and people dying and people having to, as you say, slaughter their animals, and it's just, yeah, it's awful. It's absolutely devastating. It's not the kind of news we want. We don't get a say in the kind of news we get, do we? I remember in the news last year with the forest fires and the fires on some of the Greek islands, and of course being all important in our own right. You got news about poor people having their vacation ruined, and I'm like, what about the poor people who have their homes and their livelihoods ruined? Why are we focusing on the people who were on vacation? It does not make sense to me. Why? Why? So it is no fun to have that. I don't think I've checked the news today specifically, but the heat waves don't get any better, do they? It's just awful. I feel like every year as well there's a lot of challenges and suffering in India and those regions because the heat waves there tend to be so severe. It's certainly a new normal and not an encouraging one, but I hope people stay safe. Probably a way I can do this without turning what I'm doing every time I do a new stitch. But sometimes brain is fried and just needs something simple. We are about to have ads. So if you're new here, we pause for ads. Not that we are very active at the moment, but we pause for ads, we take a sip of water, we rest. You don't miss anything. Can I make a drink, madam? No, not for you. And it's in a bottle because I'm clumsy, and if it was in a glass, I would for sure knock it over where it rests on the floor. So, clumsy help for the win. What other sort of clumsy accommodation could we get? I'm sure there are plenty that I'm just not thinking about. Maybe I do several already. It wouldn't surprise me, because that is certainly an affliction that we work with in this house. Those motor skills not always doing what we want. I agree, every day should be a cat's day. Yeah, it's a good day to be a cat, isn't it? She's purring and falling asleep. I'll take it as a yes. I so like these kinds of russet stitches because they look so, like from afar they can look fairly complex, but in execution they're often pretty simple, which is one of my favorite things. And I also really like the inverse, which is when you're wearing something that is really complex, like a tiny silk tablet woven band, and people don't realize how complex and detailed it is until they're really up close, or they have to know what it is. Otherwise, especially these days, they will just assume it is made by machine, because everything is made by machine these days, isn't it? And that kind of subverting expectations can be a lot of fun. And needle binding garments as well can be a lot of fun, because a lot of people don't see needle binding garments, and you'll get crafty people on the bus asking what it is that I'm wearing, because it isn't crochet and it isn't knitting, and they are confused and intrigued in equal measure. And it can be such a fun moment to talk to them about it, because usually they have an interest in craft since they're noticing it in the first place, and then you get to talk about fun stuff, which is always a good time. I wonder how long it'll take us to finish this one, unless I just suddenly get inspired to sit off screen and just work on it for several hours and just completely zone out, which can be very, very nice. Just sit and craft and have a good time, because it always takes longer than we think, doesn't it, when you're embroidering or knitting, or it's like, oh, I'm just gonna knit this tiny thing, and then several days later you're still working on a part of it that was just supposed to be a fast little project, and yet here we are. Do you find that as well, or are you good about assessing how long you're gonna spend on a project from start to finish? Because I still, even though I feel like I am sort of pulling my project down and down and down to make them more manageable within whatever time frame I have, I still end up going, oh, this still took longer than I thought it would, but I was just gonna do, you know, XYZ. Why does it take so long? And then it's also a little bit of like, oh yeah, it's because we hand sew a lot of things, because I enjoy that kind of quiet, subtle movement of it, and that adds so many hours to all of the things. Is the fabric bothering you, darling? Usually everything crafty takes 3 times as long as you think it is. I think that's a good estimate. I think that's a good estimate for projects in general, like at least 3 times. I'm used to thinking at least twice as long, but 3 times is probably more realistic, if I'm being honest. There's no, I'm just gonna, when it comes to making things, it always turns out to be more involved and detailed than you thought it would be, which can be equal parts fun and frustrating. I have a huge project upcoming, embroidering a larger drawstring bag, larger than an alms bag. I made a motif inspired by a certain 13th century religious textile from Germany, and I'm going to use the something. I assume we are continuing. Ooh, I've seen some friends make medieval bags that are completely embroidered all over as little drawstring pouches, and they are so impressive. So much work into them. Ah yeah, and I'm going to use the same stitching techniques they were using. I want to take it with me to the festival in September. Sounds like an awesome little project. But yeah, embroidery is always so much more time consuming than I think. It's like I'm just going to do a couple of decorative stitches, and then you're sitting there 10 hours later wondering where the time went, and you still aren't done. But it's also really enjoyable, I find, because the thing is already sewn, or it's a piece that is going to be stitched together later. But it's, yeah, it's very different from sewing garments together, that's for sure. I usually underestimate time. Oops. Just the wrong one. Often I shoot myself in the foot because I get into something and decide that something more detailed would be prettier. Oh no, I can definitely relate to this. And like, it's the whole I'm just gonna, and then you try to do that and then it ends up a whole lot more elaborate than it needed to be. But it's also fun in a way, at least I think so. Like, I don't have to embroider this pouch, it'll work perfectly fine without embroidering all over it, but it's kind of, it adds that bit of whimsy that I find that I really enjoy, that makes me happy to wear and use things, because when I look at it I smile. It's, I don't know, there's something about it that just makes me happy, so I try to lean into those things. And I'm hoping that they make other people happy too if I make them gifts. I'm going to prepare it and take it with me to start the embroidery on the festival. There's lots of time for sitting around and enjoying the music while crafting. That is a very sensible project to bring to a festival, because some projects don't travel very well. They're too large or cumbersome, or they have too many tools and parts, so that when you're sitting there you always have to find stuff or dig stuff out or make sure that you have everything that you need. But embroidery is very good little project that you can keep in a little basket and work on. That makes more sense, seeing as you will start in September, which is not that long until, isn't it? It's not that far away, and big changes are coming in September, so we are working hard over here to prepare for that. I'm curious to see if we're going to manage to keep the lives going throughout the end of August and beginning of September, because we have some big changes coming, and yeah, there might be a bit of a break then, but hopefully after that we'll get back to business as usual, and I'll be able to focus again properly and not be so distracted by all of the everything that is going on, because summer do be crazy indeed. It's always so much happening. I don't know what it is about, see if I can show it to you, about this stitch, but I just think they're so fun. They look kind of, I don't know, like dainty and nice, but hello Brooke, welcome. We are having a nice, slow, quiet start to the live stream. We're still considering it to start. Oh, we're always already half an hour in. Oh well, I feel like we've only just started because I'm still feeling a bit. Yeah, it's been very hectic. I guess I can tell you guys now because all of the wheels are set in motion. We are just having to do the thing, but we are moving in end of August, beginning of September, and we are moving far. We are moving, I think it's about 500 kilometers. It's basically from one side of Norway to another, or to and if any of you were here more than 2 years ago, so a long time ago, we are moving back to the city that we moved from 2 years ago, for reasons. I do not recommend two long haul moves in 2 years, but sometimes you just have to do the thing, don't you? You just have to do what you gotta do. And oh baby, so that is putting a bit of a chaos element into everything. We're sort of trying to pack down my workroom last so that it can sort of stay as a place that I can work for as long as possible, but I'm already noticing that it's very difficult to film, it's very difficult to research or plan scripts, it's very difficult to, you know, sit down and have that peace of mind, because you feel like there are 1,000 things that you need to do, you know, boxes that need to be packed, things that needs to be cleaned, you know, the whole house needs a very good thorough clean before we leave, and all of that is always a lot of work, and then it's very hard to sort of have that when you're trying to focus on work. So I'm really hoping that as soon as we have moved and we are in the new workroom, that I will get back to having, you know, being able to focus on this channel, on making videos, on stuff, and So hopefully we will get back to a better publishing schedule after that. I mean, it's still going to take some time to get set up in the new workroom, but we will do our best. That's a big move. Happier in the city or in the country? Well, I think we will be happier at least closer to the city where we have been. I mean, I have lived in larger-ish, I mean, Norwegian cities are still tiny in global sense, but in universities and stuff, whenever I attended university as a young adult, that was sort of the norm. And I didn't think that I was as attached to cities as it turns out that I am, but we live so rurally that there's only one bus that sort of takes the teenagers to high school and a city an hour south, and then there's one bus in the evening that takes them home again. So you could, if you had errands and you didn't have a car, go there, go to do some shopping, and then come back again in the evening. It would be a whole day affair. And that is sort of that. There isn't that much more public transit than that, and I miss public transit. I didn't think I would miss it as much as I do, but I really do. I miss being able to jump on a bus, get where I need to be, and then not have to worry about where I parked or whether the parking meter is still active, or, you know, driving in city traffic with all of the stressors and everyone being stressed. I would much rather just sit on a bus with my headset. And and the most importantly of all, we are moving back to a really good community of mind. It's I have a lot of good friends there. We have a community that we're moving back to, and I'm really looking forward to that. You know, people who help each other and show up for each other and just enjoy hanging out together. And I mean, I'm fairly introverted, so I don't have the biggest social needs, but I do have some social needs, and can't get all of that fed by doing lives and hangouts online. So I am really looking forward to it. It feels like we're going back where we are supposed to be, if that makes sense. And we found a place where there is a workroom, so we can get that set up, and we get to decorate it. We get to paint the walls. I was thinking about wallpaper, but I think painting will be easier. I'm hoping maybe we can do some custom furniture, if we can build some stuff. I'm not sure if that is realistic, if we would actually manage to build it, or if we would just be, you know, stuck with the wishes. But it's about the same size as the one we currently have, you know, decent sized bedroom type sized, with a window, and currently white walls, but we get to paint them. So I'm thinking we're gonna go, you know, basic millennial sage green, but maybe some different shades of green. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a really good move, and I'm really, I mean, right now, when you're in the middle of it, we're looking forward to being done. That's how it is, you know. That sounds stressful. I really hope your move will go as smoothly as humanly possible. We hope so too. We are working, you know, piecemeal on stuff. And we went to the recycling center today to get rid of some larger, you know, pieces of things for recycling that we're not bringing with us. We're trying to pack a couple of boxes every day so that you don't end up stress packing at the end, just throwing anything and everything in boxes. And yeah, fingers crossed that it will be a good move for everyone, and then I get to focus again on making stuff for the channel, and which will be good, because by the time we're there in September, we're starting to get towards autumn and cozy season and all of the good things. I think it's going to be great. I hope this is a welcome change. It is. I mean, it's always a lot of work to move, but I am looking forward to it, definitely. It feels right. Sometimes, you know, I mean, when we moved here, it never quite felt right. It was based on kind of a wish and a desire, and it didn't pan out the way we thought it would, but this time it feels right. It feels like we're going back where we are supposed to be, and that is really nice. That is really reassuring, and we're gonna hopefully, fingers crossed, stay there in the place that we are moving into for many years until we can get sort of our wits about us, and then hopefully staying in this city for for a long time. And we are about to have ads again, so replenish that hydration and take a breath. You need a reindeer cart, Kristine? That does sound like a lot of fun, and I mean, to be fair, we currently live on a farm, so that would be fun. Yeah, that would definitely be fun. Reindeers are very cute. We see them often when we cross the mountains. They are super cute. Community is good? Definitely. Community is so important. It's not to be underestimated or trifled with. It is really... It's the glue that keeps us all together, isn't it? That sounds like where I grew up, 3 buses per day, and you wanted to avoid the school bus whenever possible. Yeah, it can be a challenge. At least here, in a sad way, there are so few students going to the high school anyway that there's always space on the bus. Even if it is officially like a bus to take the students south, it is a regular bus, since the rest of the community can take it as well. But yeah, it can be a little bit of a challenge if you're trying to get anywhere else but that one city, to make sure you get back in time for the last bus home, which is not in the evening but in the early afternoon. But it's still been very nice. I mean, we got to test out slightly more rural living than either of us are used to. We still have a store fairly close, but yeah, I think it's gonna be nice. I think it's gonna be good. Sounds great. I wish the best. Thank you. We hope that it shall go as smoothly as humanly possible. I wish that YouTube allowed photos in the chat. It would be... I would love to see what everyone is doing. It all sounds interesting. Oh yeah, it's... I think it's a bit too difficult to administrate if people are showing pictures that are untoward or not, but that would be really nice. But if you want to chat about projects, you can do so in the Discord if you like, where we have different channels for different crafts and some creative show-off groups where you can just show off what you're working with. So if you want to join us, we have a very cute, it's very intimate little channel. We currently have, I think, 260, 270 members, so it's still fairly small and cozy, and the members are super nice, and it's very welcoming. People are super good about, you know, listening to each other. Let's see if I can... There we go, if you want to check that out. You know, Discord can be a bit intimidating and people end up with lots of servers, but we try to keep it a small place that is welcoming. And you can curate the space to be as big or as small as you like. I've kind of set it up with a lot of private areas that you can join or leave, so that you have a small server or a big server, depending on what is your preference, so that people hopefully reduce the risk of getting too overwhelmed. I just watched a yarn shop tour of Oslo yesterday. That sounds lovely. There are a lot of yarn shops in Norway. Like, we don't have a lot of fabric shop, but yarn shops are plentiful. Lots of even the smaller cities and towns have yarn shops. We really do like our knitting and our crocheting and our yarn work. I think it's knitting more than crocheting, but definitely very popular. People have a lot of fun making stuff. So yeah, we are spoiled for choice. That is something that I noticed when we lived in London for a few years while spouse finished their undergrad, was that I was used to yarn shops everywhere, and they not so in London by contrast, which was very interesting, very educational. We always talk about how all of these small things that you don't really think about can be very, very different from one culture to the next, which can be super interesting. I'm sure there are plenty of other things that stick out from one culture to the next without anyone really thinking about that being a thing. Because that's just how it is, isn't it? That's what we think when we're walking around experiencing it. We're just used to it being the norm. We still have plenty of blue on the needle, so what shall we do next? Surely we can find somewhere to deposit a little bit of blue. Maybe over here. I was surprised by the same thing in Scotland. Oh, does Scotland also have a lot of yarn shops? That sounds like that's, yeah, but they have a big wool industry too, don't they? So that kind of makes sense. I also had a friend who visited Shetland Isles. They had booked a trip where they went on a sailboat that had been restored and taken care of, and they stopped and they had this adorable yeah, they found a lot of yarn, a lot of your local yarn, which I think is really cool about visiting different places, is finding local shops selling local things, because then you get a really fun and unique I have all the words today. Souvenir, because I don't really like to buy like the kind of knick-knack souvenirs that are common. That there's this term in North Norwegian that, you know, for it's kind of indicative of something being just a dust catcher. It just stands in a windowsill or on a shelf and catches dust, and that's kind of what it does. You know, those little porcelain figurines, right? Little decor things. And a lot of souvenirs, I feel, are like that. But when you find something locally crafted that is a thing that you can use, I think about that place every time that I use the thing, and I think that is a lot of fun. Do another tiny flower? That's a good idea. Let's do some, I mean, we have a pretty light blue. Let's do some light blue flowers on the black here. Let's see. Let's see how many we can do with this little piece of black. Madam, we've talked about this. You have to keep your bum inside the lap at all times. Otherwise you will slide, and then you will dig your claws into my thighs, and none of us will be particularly happy about the situation. I was supposed to cut your claws today, and I still haven't gotten around to do that. Perhaps we shall do so after the live. Oh, no, the lack of yarn shops surprised me in Scotland. Oh, really? That is interesting. Yeah, because I would have thought they would have had a thriving knitting and yarn community. Oh, that is interesting. That it was the opposite, that I misunderstood. Huh. Yeah, we are very spoiled for choice in Norway. Like, the yarn shops abound everywhere. Hello from Gelia, Nordsjælland, Denmark. Hello, Toria, welcome. We are chilling out as usual, making all sorts of different flowers in this case, which I think is a good idea, because it's always fun to do different things like that with variegated yarn. It always turns out, you know, a little bit like when you see black work done with variegated yarn, or like a gradient from, like a rainbow gradient from one side of the black work embroidery to another. Oh, they are so gorgeous. I think black work is such an excellent carrier for subtle color changes. It does it so well. It's just so pretty. And the times that I've done black work with variegated yarn have also been really, really satisfying. And it's a lot of fun, and they're fairly simple patterns, which I do enjoy. Again, with the simple pattern for exceptional results, it's very, very satisfying to me. But that was 20 years ago? I couldn't tell you if things have changed now, but Yeah. We are definitely spoiled for yarn shops in Norway. It's one of the things that you'll generally find even in smaller town centers, which is quite interesting, I suppose. In addition to your post office and your grocery shop and maybe a florist or something like that. I mean, or plant shop. Maybe a little library. What sort of shops are always around where you are? Is there anyone that is super recognizable that other people perhaps wouldn't think? We are losing things like cheesemongers and butchers and fishmongers and stuff like that, and alarming, right? People just go to the grocery store, but other things remain. No, that's not the best flower, is it? Oh well, it shall be whatever it wants to be. It was a little bit big. I should have made it a little bit smaller. But it shall still be cute. Hi everyone, hi Kristine, hello Alex, welcome. We are having a calm time as usual. I am trying to convince this somewhat messy thing to become a lazy daisy, but I'm not quite convinced that it wants to. I should have made it a little bit smaller, but we learn these things, don't we? Trial and error. I hope you are doing well this Thursday evening, at least in my neck of the woods. So it is trying to line away that where I don't get the embroidery on her, which is turning out to be a challenge. I was wondering, do those yarn stores in Norway also carry fiber to spin, or is it just yarn? Generally it is just yarn, although they will sometimes carry fiber for stuffing, so for plushies or pillows and things like that. I haven't seen so much fiber to spin, though I might be mistaken. But you can order online from the local yarn suppliers, will often have yarn or fiber to spin as well. Sometimes you'll see, you know, a little bit of color, like wool for art projects, but they're not specifically made to spin, as far as I know. I haven't noticed it, at least. And they generally don't sell spinning equipment either. It's generally crochet and knitting and other knickknacks that people can use. A lot of the time they will also sell finished knits that the employees or whoever have been working on, but they like the knitting more than the finished product, so then they end up having a little rack of things to sell as well, which is not unusual. And I've seen in recent years there are a lot more yarn kits than there used to be. Usually you would just buy the yarn and a pattern book or something like that, but now you'll get little, especially around the holidays when people be needing gifts. I saw it last year, little pre-packaged bags that is already, you know, the pattern and the yarn that you need and everything in one little bundle. And that is not something I've seen before. Is that something that is common where you purchase your fiber? That's too bad. I may be planning a trip to Norway next summer. Well, yeah, I hope it will be worth it even so for less fiber, but maybe you'll find some places that carry it. It is getting more interesting or more common, but I haven't seen it myself, at least. But then again, I also haven't been looking for it, so I may be wrong. Madam, you're being very restless. Now picture you taking a longboat and rowing up the coast. If you have a longboat anyway, it might be less work to let the sails do the job, provided the wind is going in the right direction. Although weren't they I think the group was doing like research on how lenient a boat or a sailboat would be to changes, and how many degrees you could be sailing sort of out away from the direction of the wind and still get in the direction that you want, which is super fascinating and not something I know anything about personally. But I do love that we figure out these things and do experiments and have fun with it. There we go. Not the prettiest flower I ever did do, but still, she's there. She's having a good time. You're being restless, darling. You keep readjusting yourself. I used to be amazed at those small general stores. In most everything else you could find totally unique finds and exactly what you wanted. Well, in the city you can hit 15 shops and still nothing. I know, right? Some of those, we have some of those tiny shops local here as well, and they're crammed full with all sorts of different things, and suddenly you'll find fishing gear and mosquito netting and porcelain and canning jars and summer toys and yeah, just all sorts of things. It is really fascinating to see just how those tiny stores operate and find ways to appeal to everyone. We have a local yarn store that sells pre-packaged emotional support chickens. Either knit or crochet, has the yarn, needles, and even the eyes. That is adorable. I've seen those, they're really cute. You can go in the direction against the wind by zigzagging with a sailboat. Oh, that is so fascinating. I have never gone sailing. I have the worst sea legs. I get seasick just looking at a wave, so it's not really... I don't feel like that is where I spend my energy best. I admire it though. It can be a lot of fun, so long as there's enough speed that I don't really feel the waves. But yeah, it's not really something I have explored because I have a propensity for getting motion sick no matter what or where I'm going. So whenever people tell me that, oh, when you commute by bus you can just sit and read, and I'm like, nope. I can have audiobooks or music. I cannot read a book or work on a project or sew or knit or what have you. I will get terribly green. How I wish that I could do that. We are about to have some more ads, so remember to hydrate. It's summer season. Shall we do a little kitty break? Since we are having an ad break anyway, let's see. So this one. I really need to set this up better. There we go. Look at that little sandwich, well stretched out. Oh, you my little slug. All soft and resting. Let's see, the last thing I need is another fluffy, but those support chickens are darling. They really are though, they really are. They're so cute. I think the only plushie we have is a little dinosaur. It's a little green dinosaur. Technically it's one of those heating pads that you can pop in the microwave, but I never have the heart to pop the little dinosaur in the microwave, so it just sits on a shelf, and his name is Roar, which is a bilingual pun, which I love. So if you are bilingual in chat and you have some good bilingual puns, hit me, because I love me a good bilingual pun. But it's a bilingual pun because Roar is a common Norwegian man's name. And of course, rar is the sound that dinosaurs make. It's onomatopoeia. So it works in both languages, just like sut is sot with one O in Norwegian and sut with two O's in English, which is also a name that means the same thing and works in both languages. And I just, yes, it brings me a lot of joy to have those kinds of things. Speaking of gifts, what all are folks making this year? I'm doing clutch type purses, tote bags, market bags, scarves, and caps. That is a long list. Wow, Kate, that is really extensive. I don't make a lot of gifts anymore because I have generally come to a place where a lot of my friends, we don't give each other gifts formally. Like, I don't look at the calendar and go, I need to buy them a present for this time because this is a time where we exchange gifts. We have generally done away with that, and we instead go for, I made you this thing, or I saw this and thought of you, here, happy Thursday, or what have you. So I have reached a point where with friends and family we generally don't exchange gifts unless it's, you know, something that we thought about with them, so that you don't have again those little dust collectors that is like people felt obliged to buy a gift, so they just bought something, and then it's more consumption and not really satisfying for either end. I do sometimes make food gifts, which I think is a very nice compromise, because you get it, you eat it, you're done. You don't have a thing that is catching dust, which I think is a lot of fun. But currently I'm just working on this thing. I wanted to make friends some cowls, but we'll see how far I get. I always have a lot more intention to make stuff than I have execution skill. Because you always want to make so much more than actually gets made, don't you? There is a book about a Swiss media guy moving into a village in eastern Germany, and the shop assistant in the village shop said to him, "What we don't have, you don't need." I love that. Tiny shops are the best. Like, you never underestimate those tiny village shops, because they will cram so much into their tiny space. Like, I think they must be wizards, because they can just magic up space where you wouldn't believe they had space for anything to live. Madam sure is a lucky cat. How did she come into your life? Well, it started with another cat, my Madam Enya. Let's see, I don't think I can actually... Can I grab her photo? This. Oops. See if you can see this. This is Madame Enya. She was a super sweet, super anxious little old lady cat. Let's see, maybe I should try to hold things up a little bit longer so people have a chance to see them. And there is also soot in the background, actually, surprisingly. And we moved into a place where, after a year of living there, we realized, oh, we could actually have pets here after renting for so long with the rules of no pets. It was kind of surprising to be like, oh no, we actually can have pets here. So we went on the local shelter's website, and I fell completely in love with Enya, who was a 12-year-old fluffy madam old lady cat who their owner had gone to a care home, and none of their family members could take care of Enya, so at the ripe old age of 12, she went back to the shelter from whence she came. And of course, a lot of people don't want to adopt older cats, they want a kitten. But I fell completely in love with her. Poor old lady who had to live there in her old age. So I talked to Spouse about it, and I was like, well, we have never actually had cats, but isn't this a good sort of trial cat, if you will, because she is an older cat. She will pass away within 5-10 years, and then we will know if having pets is for us or not, or if we value our freedom to travel without arranging for kennels or pet sitters a lot of the time, and like what will be our priority. And as expected, having pets is a lot of fun, but Madame Enya was deeply, deeply tied to me. Like, she was my cat without a shadow of a doubt. She would follow me around. She would sleep on my lap all day long. She would just, yeah, she was, there was no doubt that she was tied to me. So Spouse wanted, understandably, a kitten who would be their cat, who they could hang out with, and a kitten that they could play with and have fun with. So they went on the shelter's website again, and Madam, do you really want to go up there? There she goes. And they went on the website and they found from a litter of kitten that they had just taken in. They had just found a colony on an island off the coast of the city where we were living, and they had just gotten a whole lot of cats, amongst them a litter where Soot was a part of. And I think she was 10 weeks old at the time the Spouse found them, and the time of giving kittens away at the time was, they'd have to be 12 weeks. Now they have to be 14 weeks, which I think is good. But yeah, Spouse really fell in love with she had a very mischievous little face. And so they went to the shelter and adopted her and came back with her in a bag, and she was super, super darling, so cute, just super cute. And then we had a little boy that would run amok and have a lot more energy than Old Lady Cat. And a few years ago now, last winter, Enya, her kidneys, as was so often with case with older cats, gave way in a way that we couldn't rescue her. We had the kidney-friendly food was no longer doing the thing. She wasn't eating, she wasn't drinking, so we had to take her to the vet for her last trip. And losing a pet, I mean, I cried almost uncontrollably, non-stop, for 2 weeks before I started to get a little bit on top of things again. It was devastating. It really, really was. And she was so, so sweet. Just, there's the sweetest cat you can imagine. And then after a while, Spouse wanted Soot to have a friend, and then we adopted Embla from another litter of kittens that needed a home. And yeah, they are really sweet babies. I feel bad for the fact that black cats are less likely to be adopted, either from bias or just from people, like biologically, people tend to notice color more, and the black cats often end up in the shelters a lot longer than everyone else. So by chance and circumstance, we ended up with a lot of black cats, and now I feel like it's just a kind of a thing in a positive way that, these kitties need homes, and I'm more than happy to give it to them. They are so very sweet. Old lady cats are so sweet. My brother and I adopted a sweet lady when I briefly lived with him as an adult. She was so loving and passed 3 years back. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah, they are so, so, so sweet. She was so affectionate, and it was so clear that she had lived with like an old lady who had discipline in her home. She was an anxious little floof, and she preferred to lie next to you. If I was sitting on the couch, she would prefer to lie like glued up against my thigh, but if I was sitting in the chair, she couldn't do that, and then she would sleep on my lap and realize that wasn't so bad either. She was so sweet. I hoped she would be with us for longer than that, but it was not meant to be. I adopted 2 bonded 14-year-olds and an 11-year-old who had all been at the shelter for a year one time. Oh, that is so... Oh, they are such sweethearts. I'm so happy you were able to give them a home where they could live out their final years. They're so sweet too. I mean, Embla now, because she was also adopted as a kitten from a hoarding situation, is a handful. She's reaching her 2nd year now, so she'll probably calm down after a while. But yeah, they are adorable though. I love them to bits. They're so sweet. I've never been attracted to black dogs particularly, but I love black cats. Yeah, I love them. They are so adorable. And Sud isn't pure black, like she has a little medallion on her chest that is white. It started as a single hair on her chest when she was a kitten, and now it's this tiny, tiny medallion. It's super cute. Hi Kristine, I'm just now joining. Can you share what you're working on? Let's see. Sure I can, Emily. Just give me a moment. I am working on, this is a Victorian crazy patchwork. It's going to be a little, let's see if I can do that. It's going to be a little pouch. It's exactly the same dimensions as a video I did about Victorian crazy patchwork, but I had more. I mean, don't we always have more scraps? So, and I had more backing fabric, especially. I actually have backing fabric enough for a tiny, tiny pouch as well, but I had one more for the same dimensions, and it's sort of been my go-to project when I don't know what else I'm working on. So now I'm done with, you know, the stitching the patches on, so now we're doing fun things like embroidery, and a lot of lazy daisies are happening because that was a thing that happened a couple of lives ago, and a lot of edge embroidery, and it's just, you know, gonna be this mad whimsy thing at the end. I don't have no idea when we're gonna finish, because when I am not doing a project because I'm filming it for a video, it gets so far down the back burner that it's not even on the burner at all. It's just in the fridge. It just moves at a glacial pace, and indeed I haven't really been working on it off screen unless I have been doing it on a live like this, which I find it is after the first few lives where I was really anxious and I kept making mistakes with my embroidery. Now that I am a little bit more chill, it's a very nice project to work on while I'm chatting because it's low stakes. It's not, you know, something where if I mess up I have to unpick hours and hours and hours. If I make mistakes, it can just be a little bit of whimsy. It can be part of the whole thing, because these end up really whimsy, and that's just kind of how they roll. Like what is this nonsense? This is the first embroidery thing that I did. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see if I can I can manage to show it in a way that I can also see what's going on. But see here, this is where I started the live the first time, the very, very first time, and the stitches are, you know, kind of neat, kind of even, kind of nice. And then as we go down here, whoop, the stitches end up so wide, so wonky. Like, what even is this? These are twice as wide as the stitches in the beginning. Like, it was... yeah, my nerves were in my throat the very first live, and now it's something I look forward to every week, where we get to hang out and chat and relax. And at least in my case, I know some people use this stream to clean and do stuff around the house, but for me, since I am sitting here, I have to actually sit here, and if I've been running around all day fixing stuff, it is very nice to be able to sit down and have a chat with the community and see what people are up to, and also do a little bit of crafting with no stakes, just chill crafting without anyone being like, oh, it needs to be done like this, it needs to be done like this. No, we're not about that in this community. We just do the thing that brings us joy. And to me, adding whimsy and colors and embroidery to things that I use brings me a whole lot of joy. I loved your OG Crazy Victorian Patchwork video. thank you. This is exactly the same, just, you know, off screen, but it's exactly the same technique and thinking, just that I'm not filming it, because I mean we already did a video about that, or at least that particular pouch. It seems I want to do other stuff, but it's the pouches and bags and stuff seems to be like they would make nice gifts, so I try to do that. I have this idea that I want to have a little pile of gifts that are handmade that I can grab if I need one, but I never actually get around to doing that. It's usually like, oh, I made this for this person and made this for this person, and that's just how that is. And we are about to have some ads again, so if you're new here, we pause for ads. If you get ads, don't worry, you're not missing anything, because in a very real way, if you are in a geographical region that gets ads, you are supporting the channels. It seems pretty mean or callous if we just left you behind while you get ads. So we pause for ads, we grab our hydration of choice, if you have one, and we just take a break, breathe. Don't worry, you don't miss anything. And Brooke commented on this a while ago, but we ended up talking about black kitties, but you said that you like your gift, or like my gift giving method better, which is that we don't really give on specific dates, but we just give whenever we think of each other. And yeah, I really like the culture that we have fostered in our community, where there is no pressure to like have to give for birthday, or you have to give for holidays, or you have to give at these days or these times, or you're a bad friend. You just give when you have something, you thought of the other person, and sometimes you do give on birthdays, but not every birthday, and it is so much more chill. You don't have to worry about finding a thing that they will like and focusing on stuff. It's just I feel like the gifts get better that way too, because yeah, they might be more rare, but they are more thoughtful, and you're not stressing about finishing something in time for a specific time. You can sit and work on whatever you are making for them until it is done. So yeah, I really enjoy that. It started with, you know, trying to tell family and friends that I didn't really want or care for gifts. I don't really feel like you need to give me a gift to show me that you care for me. That is not something that I require. And with some family members, we managed to turn from giving gifts to giving donations. Hello, you're done upstairs, are you? And that is really nice as well. So we end up donating to charities, and that is quite nice instead of gifts, because again, a lot of us have enough stuff already, so we don't really need a lot of more stuff. I use these streams to help me get up in the morning, otherwise I wake up my normal time, they're already done. That is a clever way of doing that. For me, this is winding down at the end of the day, because it's already 7 p.m. by the time that, so when you are getting up, so that it's so nice to see people talk about different ways that they are interacting. For me, this is an afternoon, evening thing, so it's so fun. Time zones blow my mind. I understand them in theory, and yet every time I'm reminded of their existence, I'm like, oh right, your day has barely started, or you're here in the middle of the night, or it's really, yeah, it's mind-boggling stuff when you think about it too hard. ice is also getting fairly uneven. We are being uneven today, apparently. It is just the name of the game, but it's alright. Sometimes I care about the accuracy, and sometimes I just lean into the whimsy. I really should get a setup where I can show you stuff on my screen, because I have a picture of Soot when she came into the shelter, and we actually met one of the shift like responsible for making all the shifts go around so that all the pets in the shelter, all the cats and dogs, mostly cats in Norway, get cared for. Like, she was the one responsible for filling all the shifts. She was working in a pet shop, and we got to talking, and she was like, "Oh, but I remember this cat. I have a picture of her. Do you want it?" And we were like, "Yes, of course we want it." And it was a picture of holding, you know, Soot before she got her name, and just the most troublemaker expression that you ever did see on a tiny little kitten. Just super offended that you had stolen her from the wild and the colony she had grown up in, and giving her food and, you know, dry place to sleep. How dare. It's a glorious expression. It's super, super cute. The time zones I'm pretty used to because I moved around a lot as a kid, but the fact that it's now freezing in Australia sometimes still catches me off guard. Oh goodness, that too, yeah. The different weathers all over the world is just mind-boggling. You hear people in New Zealand talking about it being, you know, the chill time of the season, and, you know, time for wool blankets and knitting and firewood and candles, and it's amazing. I had some colleagues who, one colleague who worked with during my PhD, who came to Norway as an exchange student, and then, you know, married and lives in Norway and works as a PhD student. And that must be really hard because it's so long to travel to visit family and stuff if you wanted to do that. I also had a colleague who came for a conference that I once attended, who, it took 2 days to get from Europe to Australia just of traveling, and I don't like traveling enough as it is, and that just sounds exhausting. This live is my good morning too. It's always happy to wake up and see you're alive. I'm glad I managed to bring some joy and calm mornings to y'all, because I really enjoy myself a nice quiet morning. It's something that I really value. Having the time to sit down and, you know, have breakfast at a leisurely pace, and not just shoving a slice of bread in your mouth and running to the bus or whatever. I find that is hard for me if that was my daily, so I do value going to bed earlier so that I can actually have a bit of time to do that. But each person does their own thing. Let's trim this just a bit. Yeah, time zones are hard. My family lives all over the US, so I have to factor the time difference to talk to them. Yeah, that can be it can be a time so that you don't call them too late at night or too early in the morning. I always check whenever I'm talking to someone, like I'll have notes if it's in Discord and stuff, and I have friends who are way off in different time zones. I'll like add it to the notes that they're like Chicago time or -7 from my time, or 6 or +1, or it's just so many ones to keep track of that I find that it's easier to just give myself notes, because otherwise I would not remember half the things that I need to remember. What shall we do next? We have yellow wildfire sky this morning. Happens a lot in August now. Oh, that sounds terrifying. You know that the US is a fire ecology, and yet it still does not cease to terrify me as someone who does not live in a fire ecology, that there are ecologies where wildfires are sort of part of the natural cycle of the plants and the animals and everything. It's, yeah, it seems pretty intense. So I hope you are staying safe. Good day, madam. Did you come back? Would you like to join us again? See if I can unpretzel myself. Whoops. Do you want to come? Aww, baby. To me, it's more mind-boggling how this is actually live. Like, you're responding to this chat in live. I know, right? The internet is wild. The internet, like, for all the challenges that it poses, is pretty amazing. The fact that we can all talk at the same time from all over the world is pretty magical. I mean, the connectedness and the community and the getting to see how people live their lives from the other side of the world in wildly different cultures is just amazing to me. That is the best part about the internet, is that now you get to see how someone else lives their life without an editor in the way, without, you know, a movie company, without someone else writing the story. We can just connect human to human and hang out and chat and talk about weird experiences and yarn shops and cats and gifts and various things. And I think that is amazing, like the community aspect of the internet, that it allows for us to see how people live from all over the world, is to me the most amazing thing about the invention of the internet, is that we are able to talk, and sort of the democratization of it all, that we get to talk, you know, from one side of the world to the other, and there is no one in between. We can just chat and share experiences. That is super amazing when you actually sit down to think about it. It's not something we've had access to ever before. The pure infrastructure of the internet is one of humanity's biggest developments too. Yeah, it's a massive feat of engineering, my goodness, and the maintenance it takes to run it. Like, people forget about this because we think about the internet, you know, being in the cloud or, you know, a signal in the Wi-Fi, but it's always someone else's computer. It's always going to be something else going on as well. It's so you can have computer and server outages, and you can lose large parts of the internet. But people forget that there is an actual computer at some point storing the data in the cloud, just somewhere else. Now, if we could only put the internet under direct democratic control and cut out all the advertising and the bullshit. I'm not sure if that would be, I mean, would that be feasible? Sounds like it would be abhorrently expensive if democracies and governments ran the internet. And then you also get more agendas, don't you? I don't know, I haven't thought about that before. It's an interesting concept. It's an interesting thought. I wonder if it would continue to stay as interconnected as we have come to enjoy, or if that would get reduced. Very interesting. Shall have to think about that while we ponder all the content that AIs are vomiting out and filling the internet with, and then they are also preferring AI generated content, and then they produce more and more and more and more, and then we end up with a lot of internet full of AI generated content and very little human generated content in between, which can definitely be a challenge. Catpaw says, seasons. Well, I'm happy to see my European friends rejoice that it is summer. here it is an endurance test, I tend to feel guilty when they curse winter, which is the reward here. No, but I get it. Whichever is the respite, you know, whichever is the fun, or whatever is a breathing of fresh air. I don't know, I tend to enjoy all the seasons. They all have different things that we enjoy about them. You know, it's in spring everything is coming alive, and in summer it can get very warm, but it's also everything is growing, and in autumn you get all the colors and a lot of the fruits, which you haven't had them in summer already, and in winter you get to rest, and it's quiet, and it's, you know, I don't know, I know a lot of people curse winter, but when we lived in London and for my spouse's undergrad, and we didn't really get winter, I sort of missed that time to sort of sit down and rest and relax, because you didn't get that rest time, and I really missed it. I really enjoy. Of course, that is probably because I grew up with it, but I really enjoyed the seasonality of Norway, that you have such big changes from the winter to the summer and back again. And yeah, probably would be different if I grew up in the tropics, where seasons are not in the same way that we're used to them, but all places have their charm, don't they? I worked in web development briefly before my disability made it clear to me that I can't work on a schedule, and I love web so much in theory, but it's so little like the web I fell in love with in '98. Oh yeah, I can understand that. It was a very, very different time. I mean, I had a little Geosites web page, and you could write it all in HTML, and it was a wild time, and you would chat in different, oh, it was so different. It was so much more open and creative, and people just did whatever they could with whatever tools they had. They were, you know, closed off with social medias telling them how to use the internet in a way, because they were just out there doing stuff before all that stuff got invented. It was so much fun. It was a good time to be on the internet, wasn't it? Yeah, exactly. Good old internet. I had so much fun. Exactly. It was very different internet to how the internet operates today. It's really interesting to see how it develops and changes, and it'll probably keep developing and changing too. Like, I don't think this iteration of the internet that we are interacting with now will be a constant in any which way. I mean, even this is one of my favorite things, but we think about the salt levels in the ocean as constant, and this is something we learned in oceanography when I was having a course in that, and we only think about the salt levels in the ocean as being constant because we are looking at a very narrow window of oceans in our human lifetime. But if you look at it from a geological timescale, which is, you know, millions of years, the oceans are steadily changing depending on what salts and minerals get dissolved into the rivers and get, you know, deposited into the ocean. So constant only from our very tiny time frame, and not in the time frame of the ocean itself. And we are about to have ads, and I should have guessed, since I was already grabbing my bottle just a moment ago, getting thirsty. I think I'm getting used to the timings of these ads, but yeah, do remember to hydrate if you are, especially if you are in the summer season and might need a little bit more hydration than usual. You are a most adorable little slug. Do you want another cat break? I don't know, it's not meant as a mean thing when I talk about my kitty as a slug. I just get the association whenever I see her just stretched out and being really long. I don't know, she reminds me of a soft little cute slug, except she's a very furry one. But it's not meant detrimentally at all. It's just that she's very long and very soft. I'm very agitated, apparently, but I won't just leave her alone. what you get for coming on my lap, darling. Yeah, I really miss the cozy and the real seasons. I think I would find it jarring, yeah, if I was living in a place with different kinds of seasons than what I'm used to. Because, yeah, just moving a little bit further south and getting more rain than snow was really surprising. It was like, huh, this is very different. And I didn't, again, those tiny cultural things where I didn't think this would affect me the way that it did, but it did. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I will be lurking in the background. Good evening, May. I hope you are doing well as well. We are just hanging out, talking internet infrastructure and seasons and oceans and all of the fun things that we end up going on tangents in these talks, which I find a lot of fun, at least, to get to talk about various curiosities, because it seems like a lot of our audience are equally curious critters who like to learn about many different things. And we're gonna have, of course, many different people with many different knowledge bases and experiences, which is my favorite kind of people to hang out with, because then I get to learn cool things. Joanna says, the same is true for forests and for ecosystems overall. For example, when Ice Age come again, tree species have to retreat to the south and then come back. So did the oak and the beech, and that's how they survived the Ice Age. And after they marched back north, the beech is still on its way. It's not as far as north as it could be. We're Scandinavians, the beaches are coming. The south already has beaches, I promise. I've heard that the nuts are edible and I've wanted to try them. I just haven't gotten around to try to roast them, but I'm really curious. Forests are so cool. It's really, really... Forests are amazing. They're super fascinating infrastructures, ecosystem. I was reading that book. Oh, what was that book called again? The book about the trees. I think it was called The Secret Life of Trees. It was amazing. Highly recommend if you're curious about that kind of stuff. Super, super interesting. So much more detailed than we ever thought about, at least a lot of us think about trees. And there was a similar, I think there was a podcast about bees and about how domesticated bees are not really behaving like bees were evolved to do, and that it might be better to go back to wild bees. And it's, oh, I love people working on these things, teaching me cool stuff. Exactly that one, that's where I learned this fact. Book by Peter Wolben. Yeah, it was a great book. I got it as an audiobook and it was, yeah, so good. Super, super recommend. Let's see if I can put it in chat if anyone else is curious. The Secret Life of Trees. And then, since Joanna has so kindly has written out the author for us, by Peter Wolben. Super recommend. It was a super fascinating book. I learned so much about trees. Super, super fascinating. Climate change is so intense. My first job was in lawn care at a 5-acre paper mill, and it was 100 Fahrenheit on so many occasions. And before that year, all my childhood, that had been maybe one day of summer being a thing. That it had been maybe one day a summer thing with 100 Fahrenheit days. Yeah, it's changes are already here. It is not something that we can. I mean, there was this on Hidden Brain. They were talking about this kind of thinking that for a lot of, especially Pacific Island nations, climate change is not a future thing. It's already here. It's already happening. You know, they're already losing their homes and their islands and a lot of things. And it was more about, and some people are starting to talk more about climate resilience, like preparing for the changes that are coming, rather than talking about stopping the changes from coming at all, because at this point the changes are coming. And, you know, the question is how much, how bad, how severe. but changes are definitely on the horizon, and a lot of them are already starting to happen. Like we see it with said heat waves that we are seeing right now, tragically, and you know, every year they always claim several lives. So it's already here, it's already happening. And now it's a more of a question of mitigation rather than stopping climate change, because at this point it's, you know, a lot of things are in action already that it's not really, yeah, they're kind of gonna do their thing even if we try to reduce emission, which I think we should still do, because mitigation is still deeply important. It can still have a big impact, but yeah, it's a attitudes will be changing, I do think. I do so wish we would get a lot more proper recycling, you know, including the cycle in recycling, because so much recycling is something that you do once, which is, to me, not true recycling, because there's no cycle involved. It's just something that happens once and then it's done. Or learning how to live with the new climate. Yeah, exactly. Like, we will have to do that anyway. The question is how severe those changes will be, how severe the new climates will be when we are trying to do things. I can't decide. Oh wait, when we can't decide what to do, we make some lazy daisies with the rest of our thread, don't we? Shall we make it with the variegated blue? Nah, we'll have more variegated blue over there. We can make it over here on this little white linen. How are all the animals supposed to live with it though? And the plants, they cannot adapt that fast? No, they cannot. The rate of change is so much faster than the natural rate. Humans have HVAC, animals and plants do not. Yeah, no, I agree. It's tragic, and I'm not trying to sort of undermine that this is really bad. And it's gonna be, it's that curse, isn't it? May you live in interesting times, and we are indeed living in some very interesting times. And it's one thing in Europe, where largely, in the US, where we largely have resources, so far at least, to mitigate some of these things, but poorer countries are already seeing so much more of an impact, which is really unfair because they haven't provided emissions in the same way. So it's, yeah, it's I think it was David Holmgren who talked about different outcomes that they were seeing in terms of when things are changing. As you know, if people stay in cities and get indebted, or stay indebted, and they have to stay and they have to work, but they can't afford a lot of necessities, you know, as power gets, electricity gets more expensive, and you know, only the wealthy people can afford the comfortable amenities. It's yeah, it's a lot of things to think about. As with the trees, the climate of the earth has changed over eons and times. We can't change it. I will agree with MX Honeyfoot though. We did already change it. Human-made change is a thing. We know this, and the oil companies, the petroleum companies, knew this back in the 60s, but they refused to acknowledge it. So we have already changed it, and we have enjoyed the spoils of living in the oil age. So I do think we also have some level of responsibility for trying to take care of the consequences the best that we can, because at the end of the day, we were the ones who changed it, who put so much oil into the atmosphere at a rate that has never been seen before. It's one graph that I always pull up. Let's see if I can find it. I wonder if I can remember what study it was from. Let's see. CO2 graph ice core, maybe? Is that what we're looking for? Are you... is that... I want the biggest, the longest one. Big graph. Because that was the thing, that it was, you know, how we had changed. Like, things have changed. Let's see. I don't know if you'll see the correct picture, but if you go to 650, do they mean kiloyears? That can't be right. But 650 KYR, and we will... The hockey stick graph? Yeah, we're talking about the hockey stick graph. And I can post links because I am in charge of this, and YouTube is not going to ban me from my own stream. The rest of you can't, sadly. But yeah, it's whenever people talk about things have changed before, they have, but they've never changed as fast as they do now. It's never been something that has happened at this rate, which is terrifying to think about. So yeah, like we talk about the ecology cannot adapt at this rate. This is not the normal rate with which biology actually can adapt, and you know, animals can migrate and things can actually have a chance to adapt to new climates. It's a very new world. And there was also this, ooh, what was their name? An economist who talked about the economy of the oil age, and about how when we started extracting oil, it was, so there was the energy returned for energy invested. That is to say, how much energy you spend digging up oil versus how much you get back in terms of how much oil you can burn and then turn into fire and energy and stuff. And she talked about how back when the oil age started, oil was so easy to get hold of that you could have energy returned for energy invested of almost 100 to 1, which is unheard of in all of human history. Maybe when we were growing, you know, cereal crops and saving food storages and things like that, we had maybe 10 to 1 at most, maybe 5 to 1, and 100 to 1 is just unheard of, which is why we saw all this industrial boom, because we had all of this surplus energy. And now, 100 years later, we are seeing things slope off. You know, we had all the oil that we are finding now. You have the oil tar, you know, the tar sands in Alberta and things like that. And oil is getting a lot harder to get, so it takes a lot more energy to extract the oil to make it usable. So we are going from 100 to 1 to maybe 10 to 1. Which is still, you're still in a net positive, so it's still worthwhile doing it. But as soon as it gets so hard to extract the oil that you use the same or similar amounts of energy to extract the oil as you would get energy back by using the oil, by burning it and turning it into plastic products and polyester and all of these things that we use petroleum for, it won't be worth to dig it out of the ground, would it? Because you're spending the same amount of energy getting it out as you get by using it. And that is kind of where we are heading, is that we can no longer easily extract oil. There are no more of those reserves that are just really, really easy to get to, that has that 100 to 1 ratio. So things are already changing in that direction, and there's so many factors playing into this. It's interesting and horrifying, and yeah, it's a very interesting time to be alive, much as I wish that maybe it was a little bit less interesting. The curse is that groundbreaking medical tech saved my life as a kid, so I could not have survived in any time before this one. Yeah, same. It's we are not talking about disparaging anyone needing life-saving tech or anything like that. This is more about things that are happening, large things that are put in motion that are deeply fascinating, but also like things that we need to think about and prepare for and talk about. And again, community is so important. Supporting and helping each other is so important, you know, saving seeds and learning to grow food and crafting things and having fun. I really like that aspect. It's one of the reasons I like crafting. I'm, you know, hyper independent to my own detriment. I just like trying to make stuff on my own and seeing if I can, and, you know, sharing the spoils with friends and family. It brings me a lot of joy. So in a lot of ways I am lucky to have a brain that is curious like this and that likes to learn about these kinds of things. I lived in Texas from 2001 to 2022. When I moved there, a winter day where the temps reached 70 was a nice break from the cold. When I left, a winter day in the 70s was a break from the heat. Yeah, it is just tragic how fast things are changing. Like we talked about again, heat waves, at least when I was a kid, I mean, I didn't have the same grasp of news as a kid as I do now, but I don't feel like heat waves were an annual thing the way they are now. I can't remember the last time there weren't a devastating heat wave, both in Southern Europe but also in India almost every year, where a lot of people are dying and, you know, desperate to seek some kind of relief and coolness. It's it's just tragic. It's really, really sad. I saw a video recently about a massive new oil field they found in the ocean near Antarctica. I hope like crazy they leave it in the ground. Oof. Yeah, Antarctica is a chapter on its own. I know Norway has a lot of krill fishing in Antarctica, and I don't like it. I don't like, and they're excusing it by, you know, there's so much krill there that, you know, it's not a problem to take out several million tons, because why not? And I don't like it on principle because Antarctica is almost close to a closed system. If you look at the currents as they're moving, you have the southern currents that, because there is no continent really in the way, and like directly north of Antarctica, like you have South America tapers down into the Cape, but there is open ocean between Antarctica and South America, so there is space all the way around in a little donut in the south tip of Antarctica, which means that you have a current going all of the time, round and round and round and round. And species don't really cross this current. You have one set of species on one side of the southern current, and then you have the rest of the species hanging out north of the currents. And this is another thing. I really enjoyed oceanography when we were learning about that. It was super, super cool. I learned so many things. It was a super cool course. And since Antarctica is almost close to a closed system, as you can get on a planet where things do get exchanged, but currents are surprisingly strong. Like you don't have a lot of exchange between different water bodies and currencies hanging out. So because it's a closed system, it doesn't make sense that you have ships crossing that current, fishing, taking stuff out of their system, bringing it back into a different system, and to think that that in the long term will not have some sort of impact. That does not make sense to me, especially if you're not contributing something else back to the system to make sure that they stay well fed and contributing. Yes, it's incredible the differences in ecology on either side. It is. It's super, super cool. And I think they should maybe think about that more. But, you know, I am a lot more about protecting than economic interest, which I understand that is what the world runs on, and that is the challenge, isn't it? The balance between financially sound. But at the end of the day, this is something that I think about a lot, because sometimes a lot of the times you'll have people who talk about money as if money is the end goal. Like money is the end all be all, that is the thing that you want and need, that is the thing that you require. But at the end of the day, money is a tool, I think, at least. You know, it's a tool to try to make things better for as many creatures and humans as possible, you know, get as much goodness and community out of the resources that we have and share them in a fair way is a lot more interesting to me than trying to hoard it like a dragon and sit on it. doesn't make a very comfy chair, does it? So I don't think money is an end all be all, which is probably why we don't make a lot of money in this household. We're just kind of getting by, because when you don't prioritize it, it's not the same way. But it's a tool, isn't it? It isn't the goal in itself, and I feel like a lot of people forget that because they get hung up on, you know, they need the thing as an end goal in itself, but it's a tool. The Environmental Research Center here in Germany has a drought monitor that goes back to the 50s. There used to be maybe one drought year per decade, and maybe some dryness in some locations. But from 2018 on, we had drought in the east and north of Germany every year. A small reprieve was last winter, pardon, when everything was flooded, but now we're back in. Yeah, that is just tragic. We are also seeing a lot of increase in flooding in Norway as well, and it's you get a lot more of those, again, things that were, you know, 100-year, 50-year floods, 100-year floods, 1,000-year floods. If you're not familiar with flood terminology, like a 100-year flood is a flood that is, you know, statistically likely to occur only once per 100 years. That is a 100-year flood. Same with the 50-year flood and a 1,000-year flood. So a 1,000-year flood would be kind of the biggest, meanest, worst flood of what we have data for, because you can see this on trees and some archaeological data and stuff like that. You can like measure flood levels. And we are seeing a lot more of those types of floods that historically, from the historical data that we have, did not occur all that often. And now we're seeing them a lot more regularly. So they're going, so say maybe a 100-year flood is turning into a 50-year flood because they're becoming more common, is what that is, which is terrifying. And actually, the year spouse and I got married, which was in 2018, there was a drought in the southern part of Norway that was so bad that even trees started to wilt and drop their leaves in the middle of summer because they just had no more water to feed their leaves. And trees have deep roots, exceptionally deep roots. Like, it wasn't everyone, it wasn't all the trees, but you would see some trees just midsummer, when everything is supposed to be green and lush, just go forth and die. And it was really, really horrific to look at. Those who have a lot of money are not really any happier than those who have enough to survive. Yeah, that is the thing, isn't it, though, that you have enough to survive, because that is a lot of people are living in, you know, paycheck to paycheck and stressing over whether they're going to pay their next bill or not. And in that case, we do see that money does help happiness, because you get to stability, you get to predictability, where you can predictably pay all your bills and have food and some leisure every month without struggling. But as soon as you get people to that level where they can predictably pay their bills, that is completely correct. We don't see a lot of happiness increase if you get a lot more than that, sort of. But you do need to get a lot of people who are struggling to get by up to that point where they are, you know, reliably having all their needs met. Which is, all of these interconnect, don't they? It's just all connected, which is something I would really like. There are a couple of people. There is this one creator called Chris Newman in the US who runs Sylvan Aqua Farms, and they're turning into a farming co-op. And he came from a business background, turned farmer, but with, you know, a brain that could work in tech and is deeply, deeply clever. And to see him look at farming and going, oh, but this is a business. This is not just homestead bliss. This is actually a lot more than that, and studying business and thinking about climate and thinking about indigenous practices and, you know, Black history and all of those things. And I just love when I find these amazingly clever people who are able to take one field of interest or like one topic and another one, and they merge them, and then they think thoughts and they share them that when you hear them, that you're like, of course, that makes so much sense. But you didn't have someone or at least I hadn't found someone until then who would like combine these two different fields of study together before, and then I'm like, yes, I love seeing this kind of lateral thinking where you have one thought over here and one thought over here, and together they make something really, really interesting. I just really, really love finding those deeply clever, amazing people. They're so amazing to listen to. They teach you so much, and sometimes they challenge you, and that is good. We need to be challenged to keep ourselves in check, you know, being, at least me, very white passing, very, you know, blonde hair and blue eyes, very much needing to make sure that I keep my white privilege, at least as a thing that I keep thinking about and actively work towards trying to help other people and listen to people who don't look like me when they tell me that, you know, you done messed up, you done a dum-dum, you gotta fix it. Yeah, I remember living pay to pay until the last couple of years. It's not fun, that's for sure. Yeah, it really strains on you. And they see that in the research as well. You see that people who live in poverty and are under stress, you also measure it in their body that they are under stress. That you know, the stress affects them on a deep hormonal level, like it changes how you think and how you look at the world, and it affects you a lot deeper than people like to think. Hello, sorry I'm arriving late. Work-related webinars get in the way of the fun. Well, welcome. I am not sure that we're going to keep going that much longer, I'm afraid. It's already been almost 2 hours for me, and I think 2 hours is a good time. I'm not the kind of person who could comfortably pull off some, you know, I know some people do like 24-hour live streams once in a while, and I'm like, nah, I need my sleep. Maybe I could do a little more if I wanted to one day, once in a while, but it would never be something like that. I am not built for overnight marathons. I tried it a couple of times as a student, like I think I did a overnight with no sleep 3 times in my life, and you don't study any better, do you? It's just a big mess because your brain does not work. I am very much set in my ways. I go to bed between 9 and 10 p.m. and then I wake up between 5 and 6. At least in summer. In winter it's a little later because I sleep longer in winter. Again, respecting those seasons. I try to actually respect that. So it's more like 6 or 7, sometimes even 8 in winter. But yeah, it's a very ingrained routine. I'm very lucky to have a strong sleep schedule because I know a lot of people who don't have that. So I feel very lucky in that regard, but it also means that I'm very boring at parties because I get really sleepy. No worries, I'm just happy to see you in real time. Well, hello! Nice to see you, nice to meet you. It's good hanging out. Hit and run comment. Hi everyone. Kristine, can you look into the different treatments cotton gets? We have flannel, mercerized cotton, anything else? By now I have to prep dinner. Hugs to all. We shall see. There are a lot of things that I want to work on. I'm surprised because cotton is such a big thing. Do we not have a lot more information on cotton? I'll dump it in the idea pile, but you do be warned, it is a fairly big pile. My little Notion worksheet where I have all of the video ideas, but it is very large and in need of cleaning, but I don't want to remove any of this because that's why things are here, isn't it? Can spell flannel, etc. and save. But do be warned, there's no promise that I can actually get to it because it's a very long list. My goodness, I haven't looked at this in a while. Where did you go? You are over there. Haha. I did overnights on accident before I was on meds that helped me sleep, and it is so unpleasant. Yeah, I make no sense when I've had no sleep. Like, I get super weird, and my shields are all the way down, and I just get really weird and sleepy. And you'll notice if the stream runs too long, I get really weird. Because I just need my sleep, and I need my structured sleep schedule. And yeah, I would rather have the sleep schedule, and it works for me, so... Yeah, I would much rather have this than people who really struggle to sleep, and I fall asleep really fast, like so long as I stay within my schedule, so lucky in that regard. I would not complain, but it does mean that I can't do those mad marathons that some people enjoy to do, because I just stop working. My brain just shuts off. It's kind of funny, but also kind of weird. Puts hand up, sleep schedules are hard, hence being awake at 4 AM. Oh no, that is a very late time to be awake. I could never. Add raw cotton to that list. I have never seen it or felt it, but I've heard about it. But haven't we seen some people that have spun? Like, I feel like maybe it wasn't in our Discord, maybe it was in a different Discord. People who have grown their own cotton, and then they remove the seeds, and then they spin it as is. I haven't seen it myself. The only close thing that we have in Norway is something that... Ooh, what is... Let's see. First we're going to add that to the list, because it was mentioned, but... No, wait, that is not where it was supposed to be. Where'd you go? There you are. Raw cotton. But in Norway we have this plant that, if I translated it directly, it would mean something like marsh wool or swamp wool. And it is, as far as I can remember, related to cotton. It is in a similar family. Let's see if I can find... They're pretty. And... yeah, okay, it's a group of species. There are many different ones. But I wanted to see if we could find it in English. Riophorium. What? Cotton grass. It's a genus of flowering plants in the family Cyperaceae, the sedge family. Found throughout the Arctic, subarctic, and temperate portions of the northern hemisphere in acid bog habitats. But I thought it was related to cotton. Is it not? Cotton grass. So it looks a little bit like cotton. It's much smaller head, and it's harder to harvest because, yeah, they like bogs and swampy places that are quite difficult to navigate with your boots on, but they're super cute. I like them. I always wanted to try to spin with them because they look so much like cotton that it's just... yeah. You can fall asleep fast. That exists. I've had issues falling asleep all my life, unfortunately. I used to not wanting to fall asleep when I was a child. When I was a child, it would take me at least an hour to fall asleep because it was like... it was the one time of the day where it felt like you had all the time in the world, if that makes sense. Like, you could think about stories, you could dream about or think about things, you could think about problems you were having, issues, try to figure out things going on. But a lot of the times I would just be making up stories in my head and just enjoying, you know, that kind of creating stories. And when I got older and I guess worked more on myself and didn't have that same need for escapism at night, I stopped doing that slowly but surely. And, you know, the more I enjoyed my everyday life and I didn't have to sort of escape my daily life, the more I would just fall asleep because I didn't have things making me anxious during the day. And now I just usually fall asleep within half an hour. It's luxurious, usually even more depending on how tired I am. So yeah, I know that this is not the norm these days with, as Honeyfoot is commenting, you know, revenge bedtime procrastination. which is why I am not allowed to be on my phone in bed, because, you know, that just turns into a whole thing, and then suddenly you've read a long story. Well, sometimes I do, if I need to, but no, wait. We are about to have ads, so we are off to that. But yeah, sometimes I will read in bed if I am like feeling crazy, but I try not to. But I know that sleep issues are so common these days, and I am just super lucky not to have a big problem with it, and I try to not ruin it. I try to not break it again, because I live with someone who definitely has a lot of issues with sleep, and I can see how much it is affecting them in a negative way. Not been able to banish my phone from bed? Yeah, it's hard. It's such a hard habit to break, but more and more I try to sort of remove myself from the phone, because, again, we've talked about this before, but I really believe this is true, but you have all of these super clever people whose job it is to make apps addictive, whose job it is to make social media work similarly to slot machines, and you pull to refresh and there's new stuff, and you pull to refresh and there's new stuff. It's very much like the pulling of the arm on a slot machine. They are very similar for a reason. And when you have thousands upon thousands of super clever people whose job it is, they get paid for an app to be addictive. I'm just one human, I'm just one brain. How am I going to fight that and still be productive in any way, shape, or form? So I've come to realize that I just need to work on, slowly but surely, putting that thing away. It's a super useful tool. It's a super, like, having a computer in your pocket at all times was unheard of just 20-30 years ago, and now we have it, and we just have this amazing tool. And you see so many countries where they just skip the laptop entirely. They just go straight to phone and 4G, 3G, Wi-Fi networks, and that is how they do all their interactions and all their computer work. They just jump straight to phone because it's so convenient. But we are just one human fighting against thousands of humans trying to make us addicted to their game, their app, their software. How are we supposed to stand up against that? I just, so I try to banish, games from my phone. I have reduced the saturation, because I heard that, it makes it a little bit less attractive because it's less colorful, and our brains are naturally attracted to color. And I try to just sort of leave my phone elsewhere. I still haven't gotten to the place where I managed to leave my phone out of my workroom entirely, because I find it so convenient when I'm sitting and filming to make notes on my phone or on paper next to me, and so many things require two-factor authentication these days. If I'm logging into something, I'll need my phone for the software hardware authenticator, so that is challenging. So you need it, and yet we also have to put these barriers in place to protect ourselves and our time from all these people who just want to take all the time that we can give them. Which, I don't have a good answer to that, but hello, madam. But I try. It's not like I'm perfect at this in any way, shape, or form. I'm very much struggling with this as well, especially when I get tired and exhausted, or I'm overwhelmed because there's a lot of life happening, like right now. I very much fall into the mindless scrolling habit. But so don't think that I have this nailed in any way, shape, or form. I'm just conscious that this is something that I need to work on if I want to get work done that I value, which is making these videos for you, like sharing information about textile industry and textile history, and talking to you and having a good time. It's just things that I value, things that I want to do. And to be able to do that, I have to be mindful of all these people trying to get me hooked on apps on the phone. So yeah, it's a challenge with technology, isn't it? Gosh, yeah, I remember when I had to have intention to stop watch a single video, but now the internet is so fast it's hard to stop watching. Yeah, I know, right? It's one of the reasons kind of my kind of content and my friends' kind of content don't grow as fast, because we're not that kind of fast-paced, addictive, you have to keep watching kind of mood. It's more of a leisurely come hang out vibe, which of course is ironic because we want people to use their phones less, and yet here I am on the computer doing internet things, encouraging you to use computers less, which is, you know, a bit hypocritical, but it's also this kind of slow-paced content was something that I missed, that I couldn't find, so I'm trying to make it for other people who maybe also miss it if we're gonna be online anyway, or maybe we need something calm and soothing to be like, oh, okay, I actually can turn off this app and go and do something else. But it's a constant struggle. These things are so hard, like they're made to be addictive, and it's hard to fight them, especially if you have, you know, a brain who loves to get addicted to things. I've also been kind of trying to decomputer, dephone a bit, but it's hard. It is very hard. I absolutely sympathize. It is so hard. It's a thing that keeps you occupied without taking too much brain power most of the time. Sometimes it's too much. Yeah. I hear you. It's, you know, you pull your phone up and you pull up some dumb game or social media, and before you realize it, like 4 hours have passed and it's time to go to bed. And if you're in a bad place where, you know, you're depressed and you just come home from work and you just want to kind of shut off your brain for several hours and then just go to bed so you don't have to think about whatever is struggling with, that can be really helpful for a while. But I find that when I fall into that trap, it tends to go on for too long. Like, it goes on for, maybe it needed to go on for like a couple of days to give me a break, and then I could get back to it, but I didn't, because then you're starting to establish the habit, aren't you? But also, I find that the rest that I get when I'm mindlessly scrolling is less restful, it's less revitalizing than if I'm doing something else. Like, if I am trying to read a book, or I'm hanging out with friends, or I'm crafting, I'm talking to you, I'm doing something more slowly that is not that same kind of scrolling shorts or TikToks or what have you. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I feel like the rest that I get mindlessly scrolling shorts is different to the rest that I get if I can either just lie down and have a bit of a rest, a bit of a snooze, talking to friends, or crafting, or just sitting and thinking about the stuff that is preoccupying my mind, just sitting and, you know, doing the meditation and mindfulness thing where you just let the thoughts come and go as they please, maybe sit with a notebook and actually take some notes of what is going on. It's restful in a very different way, and sometimes I even find solutions to stuff, especially if I've been struggling with something on my computer, like I'm editing a video and I'm just stuck. I don't know how to do a passage, I don't know how to write this part of the script, whatever, and I will just stare at the computer for hours and hours and try to fight it, and then I'll be like, no, put on your shoes, go for a walk. And magic of all magic, even though I'm not thinking about the script as I'm walking, something at the back of my head keeps churning on it, and it'll just dump into my noggin randomly. I'm like, oh, there's the solution, like 15 minutes into the walk. And then I always feel like a dumbass because I could have gone for a walk when I started struggling with it 4 hours ago, instead of now that I'm getting desperate. But we try to learn, don't we? Yeah. It's hard. It's something we're all struggling with, I think, finding that balance between the internet being an amazing tool, but also a source for distraction and struggles. It's walking is great for thinking. It is. I'm always amazed by how well it works. I'm not even actively thinking about the problem I'm having, and the solution just drops into my head. Walking is amazing. It's a superpower. It's so cool. Same, but you have to organize analog options for books, music, audiobooks, etc. It takes effort and resources. Yeah, I can see that. There's challenges to everything, but we can only just do our best. When the little gears in my brain are really turning, I need to get up and pace the room. Yes, so you find something that works, and I think that is really important. And to lean into those things and let our body move, it really helps the thinking. I really like the research that talks about how the brain to hand connection. This is not super, like, it's not the same as walking, but we see that having finger movements and, you know, precise crafting skills to do really minute details is really good for the brain. We are evolved to make things, to create things, to work with our little bitty hands and do stuff. And we see that this is how, you know, children's brains develop a lot faster when they're working on those motor skills. And the same thing with older people, if they have something to do with their hands, like they do wood carving or they do anything really, their brain stays fresher for longer as well. That hand-to-brain connection is super fascinating. Like, the brain is not something that is just separated from the rest of our body and just works independently. It is so interconnected. I call that the toilet effect. Sometimes when I used to do a calculation or write a program and were stuck, I went to the toilet and afterwards was able to get further. Yeah, exactly. Getting a break just lets the brain do its thing. It's pretty magical. Slopping around in sudsy water often works a treat for me. Yeah, anything that works, anything that gets that brain that break it needs to just sit down. Sometimes I just sit down in this chair and I just, no digital things, and I just sit for 10-15 minutes and I just sort of let the thoughts come and go as they please, just whatever. And same, that suddenly the solution just drops into your head randomly. It's incredible. Yeah, I found knitting to be really nice for the brain too. Yeah, my brain really likes that, you know, repetitive, meditative, soothing motion. I find that my brain can really rest and relax. When I do that, like, my fingers and my hands are just doing the thing, and my brain is just having a good time off, a little bit of a holiday. Unless it's a really complicated pattern, which is a different kind of challenge. But yeah. But, friends, we have gone. It's 8:15 p.m. here, and I need to, as I mentioned, adhere to my sleep schedule, so I think I must leave you now. But this was really lovely as usual, and hopefully, time permitting, if moving chaos is not too chaotic, we will try to do another one next Thursday as well. I will let you know in the Discord if I have to cancel, if we have to cancel for a few weeks. Like, we don't know how fast it's going to be to set up the internet at the new place when we move in the beginning of September, but I will keep you posted as much as I can. But hopefully, all things permitting, I will see you again in a week. And yeah, video production is still gonna be low in August. I don't know if I'm gonna manage to make another video this month, as moving chaos is happening everywhere. But hopefully by September, October, we will start to get back into the habit of things. Like, we will have moved, we'll have packed out, and hopefully by mid-September, maybe early October, we will be back at it again. Fingers crossed. But in the short term, I hope that you have a really good rest of your day, rest of your week, rest of the month, and maybe I shall see you next week. Take care. Bye.